Recently, or actually it was like 2 months ago, I think now, AOC actually came out on Pod Save America and said that she would be endorsing Joe Biden. So for a lot of people that are progressives, they were very upset with AOC because there are people running against Joe Biden. There's Marianne Williamson, who is running on progressive issues. She is for Medicare for all. Joe Biden is not. There's also RFK Jr., different platform from Marianne Williamson, but then there's also Cornel West, right? So, and in this interview, AOC was vehemently opposed to a third party challenge, and to Cornel West said she respects him, but she doesn't think that he should do this. Other progressive have fallen in line and said the same thing. Then there was an article that was released by Freddie DeBauer that said AOC is just an old Democrat now. And that article actually stirred up a lot of buzz or rift, so to speak, within like the left community, so much so that Freddie went on to different podcasts to talk about it and why he wrote the article, gave specific examples. There was a counter to that from Jacobin. They wrote an article saying, here's all the great things that the squad members have actually done, but it was really more so a defense for AOC. And I want to ask you, first and foremost, why do you think some of these squad members who ran on Medicare for all and these progressive policies, why do you think they're supporting Joe Biden instead of those candidates that are running on the progressive issues like Marianne Williamson or Dr. West?
Well, I think it's because of Trump derangement syndrome. I think it's because they have either convinced themselves that Donald Trump threatens fascism, or because they are hostage to an audience and a set of constituencies that believe this. And they worry that if they don't appear to be in lockstep behind Joe Biden, that, you know, their followers will turn on them. So I think it's some combination of that. And it's bad strategy. Why give it all away right up front, right? Why not at least wait and try and get at least some flimsy verbal concessions from Biden that he's going to do something for you? I mean, why? And this was like months ago that AOC, was it in May or April or something like that, she endorsed Biden? I mean, what's the point of that? Bernie did it. Ilhan Omar was the first to do it. And Katie Porter, I guess Rashid Tlaib has not yet. I don't know, but I mean, it's silly, you know. It's not good strategy, but I think that's what it is. I think it's just this panic, and that's unfortunate because, you know, we saw what Biden did. Actually, Ben Burgess in Jacobin had a good article about this, about critical of AOC's early endorsement of Biden. And he went through, you know, all of the betrayals that Biden gave Bernie nothing. He's given the social democratic left nothing, right? He was talking about a public option, forget Medicare for all, forget it. He's talked up a public option. As soon as Bernie folded, he was like, public option out the window. The one piece of Bernie's plank he took was $15 an hour minimum wage, and then that went away too. So, he's not in favor of the PRO Act. He's nothing for that. He has made better appointments to the NLRB, and a few little things here and there around labor. And as I said earlier, you know, he has increased the budget of the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, and rebuilding that agency is important. The EPA does good work. That Nixon era agency and the Nixon era laws that it enforces have done a lot to clean up the environment. But basically, he's done nothing for the social democratic left. So I don't know why they endorsed him early.
There's something that happened recently. Bernie Sanders has gone on a press tour to different shows, basically advocating for why people should come out to support Joe Biden. As we all know, Bernie Sanders is a registered independent, but he usually, caucuses with the Democratic Party and defends the Democratic Party. One of the questions that came up is, how does Bernie Sanders feel about Dr. West running third party, running through the Green Party? And of course, the media knows that they're friends, so they brought that up. How do you feel about your friend, right? Bernie Sanders' response was, yeah, I don't think he should do it. I think this is a mistake. So this really pushes back against this idea of this political revolution that Bernie Sanders was talking about. Like, we saw we could not have a political revolution through the Democratic Party because they will either rig the primaries like they did in 2016, or they'll get outside players like Barack Obama to do what he needs to do, to tell people to drop out of the race, et cetera. So my thing is, we need to break away from the duopoly. Now, I know third party isn't going to be easy. We pretty much predict like third party candidates are not going to be able to win in 2024 because of the barriers that are in place. But the goal that I see is to get to that 5% so that they can get the federal funding. Then if you get to 15%, then you're on the debate stage. So I think this is a way to start a movement, so to speak, a third party movement to break away from the duopoly. I'm curious to hear from you. Do you believe that Bernie Sanders really feels that there should not be a third party run? Or do you feel he's saying that because Democrat leadership has told him to try to stop this so that there isn't another presidency of Donald Trump? And then also, how do you feel about the possibility of a third party movement in Cornel West's campaign?
I think Bernie is terrified of Donald Trump, and I think this is probably genuine, that he does not want a third party run. When Bernie, in my home state, there is a whole third party, the Progressive Party in Vermont, and Bernie always kept them kind of at arm's length, and did not become a member, and didn't do that much to help build that. But it was his example that really showed the way for the Progressive Party. And the Democratic Party hated Bernie Sanders in Vermont. I mean, the level of hatred for Bernie Sanders in Vermont among Democrats is something you have to see to believe. And so I think all that has just worn him down, and that the main thing is that he's and that spectacle of January 6th, the spectacle of Oath Keepers and Proud Boys, these thugs, that really, that's embryonic fascist militia there, right? So if you overlook the fact that they were all totally penetrated by the police, and that they could have shut down the January 6th riot before it got into the Capitol. If you don't want to get into any of that stuff, then it's like, I can see how you'd become totally terrified and suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. So I think that's what's up with Bernie. And then the other thing is, Bernie's always had his faults. I mean, he's been bad on foreign policy all along. My father and Bernie Sanders were close friends, and they broke over foreign policy. And I mean, Bernie Sanders remains bad on foreign policy. He has voted for war credits to Ukraine. I mean, I think this is totally outrageous. And I don't approve of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but I'm not going to pretend that the U.S. did not bait Russia into that, okay? I'm not going to pretend that there aren't actual Nazis in the Ukrainian armed forces, right? And I'm not going to pretend that this isn't a proxy war with an atomic power that feels totally threatened by what we're doing. And we have this cast of Democrat hawks in DC who it seems like have no sense of the danger of the fire they're playing with. And they're all going to be out in 4 years and on the board of Raytheon or whatever. It's like they're being incredibly reckless and dangerous with this. There could be atomic war. Short of that, there's the largest nuke plant in Europe, Zaporizhzhia, is on the front lines, right? I mean, Chernobyl melted down. Okay, it's a different model. It's not a graphite plant, blah, 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 blah. What, it's got better containment shells and stuff. But if Zaporizhzhia melts down, Who's going to send 270,000 liquidators, as the Soviet Union did, to cover it in cement and lead? So that war is extremely dangerous, and it needs to stop. I agree with Donald Trump, where he says, like, the killing has to stop. It's got to stop now. And that's not to say Russia's right or any of that. It's just like, this has to stop. And Bernie is doing nothing on that front, and AOC is doing nothing. None of the squad are doing it. And, I really think that negates everything else. As my good friend Jason Moore said, he's like, I'm quoting him without quoting him, but yeah, that war, those war credits, that is your environmental policy. That is your education policy. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, I'm for a clean environment and I'm also for the war in Ukraine. It's like the largest single methane emission in history was a direct result of that war. Either the U.S. intelligence agencies or the Ukrainians on their own, but probably some combination of the two, blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. It seems very clear. I mean, why would Russia do that? They own the pipeline. Why would they blow it up, right? They could just turn it off. They had already turned off Nord Stream 2, claiming it was maintenance, right? They don't need to blow it up. That's the single largest methane emission in history. Methane is a CO2, heat trapping gas, 20 to 30 times more powerful than carbon dioxide. So, on and on and on. Yeah, so they're very disappointing, and I no longer put any stock in them. I mean, we're anything positive happening. We've got a lot of rebuilding to do, a lot of education to do.
For those who are not aware, so Christian's father, Michael Parenti, there was a video I saw from, I think this was a couple years ago, where Michael Parenti actually was asked about Bernie Sanders. And Michael said that he would actually characterize Bernie Sanders as more of a centrist. And that was interesting to me. That was the first time I heard someone say that, but he was pointing at, like, specifically, I guess, like his policy decisions, his decisions on foreign policy, like you were just talking about. I think people seem to have this impression that Bernie Sanders is anti-war. He's not anti-war. If you think about some of the way he's voted for legislation as well. But I think that's really good. You guys can look that up on YouTube. If you look up Michael Parenti discussion about Bernie Sanders, you'll see that it's an older video where he talks about his opinion of Bernie Sanders. I think that's important for people to see. It's important for people to see.
I have a dog in here that's freaking out because there's a fox outside. Hey, get out. And my father, who is 90, he ran for Congress on the Liberty Union Party in Vermont. And Bernie Sanders had started running kind of as like a stunt in the early 70s. And my father ran in 74, I guess it was, or I forget when, 76, maybe it was 76 actually. And basically doubled the vote share that the Liberty Union Party got from, like 2 or 3% to like 7-8%. And he did it in part by cutting his hair and putting on a tie and jacket and, and going around and speaking to working class people like they were going to vote for him and talking straight class politics to people. And it was the surprise, at least according to my father, maybe he's sees it through his own rose-colored glasses, but his version of the story, he's like, Bernie's that it was like the success he had with this one run, and also his own suggestions to Bernie. I mean, they were very close friends. They would hang out. That he would say to Bernie, he said, you should get serious about this. This is more than just a kind of like yippie style stunt. Like, you could actually become mayor of Burlington. And then, of course, Bernie did and, ran. I think it took him 2 or 3 times to run for mayor of Burlington. Seriously. And then he became mayor of Burlington. He did a fantastic job as mayor of Burlington. He shut down Church Street, which is this like totally gentrified promenade. And, I remember telling young radicals in Burlington, I was like, yeah, Bernie Sanders did that. They were like, what? Bernie did that? Like, I was like, yeah, and all the stores, all the local business people were like, you can't suppress traffic in downtown Burlington. It'll kill business. Did the exact opposite. He got a minor league baseball team to come in. He was a great executive. Then he finally runs for Congress, becomes congressperson, then a senator, and and then he starts voting on foreign policy issues and reveals reveals his real limits by voting. I forget all of them. I forget how he voted on the Iraq War, but I know he voted for the bombing of Yugoslavia under Clinton. He voted for the '94 crime bill and hid behind the fact that there was money for midnight basketball programs in it and stuff like that. So yeah, Bernie has his limits, always had, and still does.